Well, hi and welcome, and I hope you're ready for Vancouver. I know Sharon Lechter is. I get to invite my friends to speak at this event. So Sharon, thank you for giving us so much of your time today, and also for coming to Vancouver with us.
Well, I'm very excited. I love Vancouver, and I know with Brad Sugars and his tribe, it's going to be so much fun. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I know you're going to hang out with us for a few days. Michael Lozier is hanging out with us for a few days. All the speakers are hanging out with us. I think that's going to be great fun. Now, before we get into what we're going to be talking about there, I got to say, 22 books, 30 million copies, global authority on financial literature. That's something to be super proud of. I guess you got to be amazed at how much you can achieve, huh?
Well, it just tells you how old I am, Brad. I was in an event last week, and they said, "Sharon, you're the adult supervision." I said, "I don't like that. No, I don't want that." But
well, your husband Michael and yourself and I, we've been to the football together. We've hung out together. I've still got to make it to the ranch one of these years.
Yes, we're waiting for you. With all these kids, you should see the fish we've been catching. Your kids would love it.
Well, I'll make sure that I put it into the schedule. Listen, we're talking wealth, and our global conference is really about helping people understand wealth. Give us, what's the starting point for people to understand this, I guess?
Well, Brad, a lot of people know that I started with the Rich Dad organization, and I built that with Robert for 10 years. And of course, the name of our company was Cash Flow because we wanted people to understand the importance of cash flow, right? And what I've seen is there's been kind of like, we've almost gone too far. The pendulum's gone too far. It's like, cash flow is very important, but you also have to reinvest that cash flow. And when people say, what's the secret of wealth? My sexiest word on earth is assets. I have to say, just practice saying it, assets. Because people get jobs and they make money and they've got income coming in and expenses, and then they end up getting debt because they buy a bigger car or a bigger house and they've got mortgages, but they haven't been paying attention to the balance sheet asset column. And that's where true wealth is. And if you've got great cash flow, then you're in a perfect position to create lifelong wealth by reinvesting that into assets. And you and I, before we started this recording, we were talking about it's kind of a simple formula. You buy a house, you rent it out, you buy another house, you rent it out, you buy another house, you rent it out. And that's the monopoly theory.
Yeah.
And then building a business where your business becomes your asset. And think about buying other businesses, and certainly real estate is a business. But understanding the importance of those assets, because we talk about, and Rich Dad, we talked about this, and I say, you're financially free when your passive income from your assets exceeds your expenses. And it's like, but you have to, don't forget the asset part of that. Yes, it's great to have cash flow, but you got to have the assets so that when you're not able to work, they're still working for you.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I see, because we focus on business so much at ActionCOACH, that I hate to say it this way because it kind of is a little negative, that some of our team and some of our clients, they're so income rich that they don't need, or in their mind, they don't need to be asset rich. You're going to be teaching a lot about that up in Vancouver. Just touch on why. How do people get stuck in income rich, I guess, is probably the thing. And because we've got to overcome that. I know you'll teach us that there, but how do we get stuck there?
Well, it's so funny because you get so excited at the top line, and then when the bottom line is really rich as well, you go, well, I've arrived. The issue is environmental issues, changes in customers. All of a sudden, that number can change right away, and your wonderful income and your wonderful cash flow goes away because one of your biggest customers files bankruptcy, and what are you left with? The remaining cash flow from your other customers. But if you've been reinvested in assets, then we talk about diversification. You've heard financial planners talk about diversification in your stock portfolio. That's all paper. But when I talk about it, it's asset categories. You have businesses, you have paper, you have real estate, you have retirement. All of those things together, you help recession-proof your income and love that cash flow while you've got it. But take a piece of that and reinvest in assets. And I talk many times, the example is you look at the NFL players that you and I love so much, right? They're making millions of dollars when they're young. And I've been talking to the NFL, the NBA. I said, put it in their contracts, put 10, 20% into a trust they can't touch. Because most of the time these kids are absolutely ready to file bankruptcy before they're 35 years old because they haven't understood how to reinvest all that cash into assets that generate long-term cash flow. The same thing happens with young business owners. I work with so many of them. They get out and they make great money and they're living high on the hog, and then something happens. A supplier goes under, all of a sudden somebody stops their stuff at the docks. I mean, the examples are limitless, and I know you can add to that list, Brad.
Oh, yeah. Look, I've seen it so often, but you talk about, like, if we look at Outwitting the Devil, one of the books you did with Napoleon Hill Foundation, it's almost you get in your own way when it comes to wealth. I mean, I guess... Yeah, tell us more about that, because I think that's something that I know you're going to teach more on it in Canada, but I think it's something that people really need to grasp if they want to understand wealth.
Well, I'm sure most everybody watching this has read the book Think and Grow Rich if they work with you. And so Napoleon Hill, he spent 25 years researching and writing that book. And when he released it in 1937, he was unhappy because he said, even though people know what they're supposed to do to become successful, they don't do it. And I know this hits home for a lot of people watching this. That certainly hit home for me. Is that you realize I should be doing this, my follow-up, follow through, but I'd rather go watch the game. I'd rather go watch TV. And so the follow-up and the follow-through doesn't happen. We know we're supposed to do it, but we don't do it. And so when he realized that, when he released Think and Grow Rich, he says, I've got to address this. And he sat down, and in a few short months, he literally downloaded Outwitting the Devil, which was really what happens to us, that man-made devil, how we hold ourselves back, identifying it. I tell you, when I first read it, it was hidden away for 75 years. And when I had the just incredible opportunity to read it, it helped me change my life. And I said, this has to get out, particularly for today's younger generation. And I used to say under 30, now I'm saying under 50, Brad, that younger generation.
Oh, good. I'm still in that younger generation. I like that.
That's right. Yeah, you're included. But you know, it's like it takes his messaging and really puts it in today's vernacular.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do to keep ourselves back? And it was a hugely transformational work. And I'm so proud to be part of it and to be able to bring it out.
Yeah, I know that my wife and I have discussed, our teenagers are at the conference with us, and it's sort of like, even though we know they won't ask to come into the sessions and be like, you kids are in these sessions, because they've got to get it as well. And I think that's an important one. Learning wealth, I thought one of the biggest reasons I started learning wealth, I remember way back when, was when my first daughter was born. And I realized, hang on, I got to create generational money here, not just my money. And I think that was an important learning. Now, we're going to do a special lunch at the event, because you also, another one of your books is Think and Grow Rich for Women. And I know you're doing it for the millennials and for kids as well coming up. It's more that you're going to write. But tell me about why you're doing that luncheon, because I think it's really important to understand your thinking behind that.
Well, we still, as women, we are still, we are already over 50% of all management positions within the industry, within business, but there's still only, 5% of women CEOs. But what happens is I kind of got frustrated, Brad. I'm not a feminist. I love working with men. But it's when men and women work together, you get the greatest results. And I got a little frustrated when it came out with Outwitting the Devil, with all the women out there complaining and criticizing. And if you are a follower of Napoleon Hill and the law of attraction, what do you think that's going to do if women are all bitching, excuse me for using that word, but with you, I know I'm safe. But what are you going to attract? Nothing good, right? So I said, it's time to stop complaining and criticizing, start celebrating women. Yes, we may only have 26 women CEOs in the Fortune 500, but in the year 2000, there were only 2. So let's celebrate the progress that's been made. We talk about we need more women on corporate boards. Well, we're at 19.9% right now, which is fabulous. And it's growing. A few years ago, it was only 14%. And so we need to qualify ourselves and we need to stand in our own power. And I truly believe the steps to success are the same for men and women. We just approach them differently.
Yeah.
And so Think and Grow Rich, as I said, was released in 1937. There were no women in business. So the book was all based on interviews with men. And so I wanted to really honor Napoleon Hill. So I took it, the book follows the same chapter format. And I highlight men that have supported women in my life. And I look at each one of those steps to success through the eyes of successful women, not to challenge men, but to allow other women to find people that they can relate to. They may read one story and it doesn't mean anything to them. The next one they go, oh, if she can do it, so can I.
Yeah, as a father of 3 daughters, I know that, perception around money and perception around those things. And I even catch myself saying things sometimes where, when the kids say to me, "Oh, thanks for working, Dad," and I say stuff like, "Oh, well, that's a dad's job." Hang on, that's a parent's job.
Uh-oh.
And it's like, but it's interesting because we have had so many things ingrained. And you're right, when I read Napoleon Hill's book and so many of the books of that era, it wasn't based around women. But the more, I know I sit around my boardroom every week and we have more women in my boardroom of senior team members than I do men. And it's not anything to do with male or female, it's to do with purely competency. But I'm really happy we're going to do that luncheon because I think that, one of the hardest things, and I really want to applaud you because one of the hardest things is finding great female role models out there in the world. And I know as a company, we are always sourcing more and more female speakers and trainers. And most of the senior people in my company are female. So, I love that fact, but I think that it's really valuable to our female coaches to have someone like you they can learn from, as well as the guys, of course, because, when it comes to finances, everyone's got to learn that stuff.
Oh.
Just to finish up, I think that overall, you go back to when, you became a superstar, famous author, like ridiculous beyond famous with Rich Dad. I think that just hanging out with you would be so much fun for people just to learn how you do that stuff, because the licensing that you can teach, the whole leverage aspect of what you teach, there's so much that everyone can learn. Most of the people watching this are already coming. There's a few sitting on the fence. Help me get them over that fence line, because this is your whole thing, outwitting the devil. They get in their own way.
Well, one of the slides I usually use when I talk about outwitting the devil is somebody sitting on the fence, because we've all been there. And it's like, oh, it's, going to cost me, $1,000 to go. I can use that money elsewhere. And I literally just got off the phone before we talked, Brad, to somebody who is having an event and sure, her numbers are really low. And I said, it doesn't matter. There's going to be somebody in that room that needs to hear your message. The same thing. It goes back to the basic Napoleon Hill. What are you putting in your brain? Who's the environment that you're surrounding yourself with? There is no doubt that if you come to Vancouver, you are going to be fed beyond measure up here and in your heart. And that's what the difference between having a business and having an asset that's going to help you, because you've got the heart invested in it and you know that it's going to generate for you. And the way you build it is through the associations that you're going to make. Many of them within the Action Coach family you already know, but there's going to be a few of us there. We're there to serve you. I'm not there to sell you anything. I'm there to serve you. And I want to honor Brad for what you've built and celebrate all of you for the success you have. And really to thank you, Brad, because you're recognizing the ability to bring in other people to help continue feeding the folks within your organization. And so give yourself the gift. I often say financial education is a gift of a lifetime. But right now, if you truly want to improve in your own business and take it to the next level, you do that by investing in yourself, investing here as well as here. And that's what we're going to be doing in Vancouver. And I'm dedicated to be there for each and every one of you. Just pull me aside if you have a question. I'm there to serve you and to serve Brad. So please come to Vancouver, play with us, learn with us, and leverage your future.
Best way it could have ever been said. Sharon, thank you so much for your time. I look so much forward to hanging out with you for a few days in Vancouver. And again, congratulations on all the success so far. You've served so many and done such wonderful things. Thank you. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.